What a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America.
Screw your freedom.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
We had to do 2 disclaimers on the satire because, folks, it is official. Twitter has been sold to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now a private owner, a billionaire that owns and controls Twitter. You can hear the screaming now. You can hear it. I mean, if you listen really carefully from miles away.
What a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America.
I tell you, I didn't expect this thing to actually happen, folks. Mean tweets are inbound. Expect Trump to trigger the left soon. It's never soon enough, though, and Trump has said he's not going to come back to Twitter. That does not mean he won't talk about this situation, this development. While it's not the end to the SHTF war, we didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for SHTF. We didn't ask for a bunch of crap. We didn't ask for Cerveza-Bug or Ukraine. We didn't ask for high oil prices or inflation. We didn't ask them to destroy our currency or our economy. We didn't ask for any of this. But these little things happen that let me know that the war is on, right? We're going to have a civil war. We're going to have a partisan war, but it's not going to be the war we're used to. That doesn't mean there won't be violence. That doesn't mean there won't be regime change. It doesn't mean there won't be secession or anything else. It just means it's going to be different. Right now, are we being distracted by this Twitter thing when more important and disastrous things may be occurring? I don't like to just forget about stuff and go, oh yeah, this Musk thing, Twitter, and that's my whole show. No, I'm looking around twice as hard now, right? Musk offered $54 billion and was refused, but a legitimate offer of $44 billion was accepted. Perhaps that's where real negotiations come in. Musk got the world's attention with a 38% premium offer versus what Goldman said Twitter is worth. Well, Twitter has accepted a whole lot less than that 38%, but it is still at a premium. Perhaps, folks, Twitter knew their power would be revoked soon, and they needed to just let it go. Or perhaps with Democrats losing power in the coming election, Twitter wanted 100% free speech so they can lie and lampoon and create fake news beyond any comprehensible scale. Never trust socialist folks further than they can be launched with a swift punt. Never trust anyone in power and authority. I don't care who they are. We don't trust them. Why should we? Right? What evidence have we been given or seen in our lives that lets us know that people in power can be trusted? Right? It's not a lot of evidence. There just isn't. Now, you want some news, right? We want to talk about some stuff. We want to see what's going on around the world. What is happening? Well, here we go. You bet, folks. Here we are in the United States of America. Once again, we got Cerveza-Bug, social disruption, election madness, educational stupidity, but we also have the potential for World War III. It is incredible. Now, I want to talk about this story first because this is important as we talk about other things that come up. And by the way, this is the live on Patreon only. If you're on Patreon, you get to watch this live and then do Q&A, question and answer. So I'll do my monologue here for a little bit, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. You get to be the heroes and talk about other topics. whatever suits you. So get your questions in to Jolene. And yes, Jolene is back. And yes, Jolene missed a good portion of last night's Sunday Night Live. The return to Sunday, the return to the night, the return to it being live. Good golly, right? I think I drank like a fish. Not that fish swallow all the water they breathe, but boy, did I swallow a lot. Anyways, Jolene, welcome back, and get your questions into her. Now, Russia has ramped up its attacks on Ukraine rail lines. Why would they do that, folks? Is it because they want to harm the Ukrainian people? No. It's because they want to stop weapons from being delivered to the Ukraine territory. And the reason I say the Ukraine territory is they want those weapons to stop being delivered. Now, the reason I say just into Ukraine territory is the United States government cannot account for who their weapons get shipped to or who gets them. They don't know where they go and who has possession of them. Now, that said, the Russian military is ramping up its efforts of Western arms, and today, Monday, they hit at least 6 different rail stations and facilities, blowing shit up left and right. If Zelensky had, how do we put this? Been good to his word in his Donbass peace accord, if he had stood up and done what he said he would do. If Zelensky had not continued to antagonize Putin and Russia, and if Zelensky had just surrendered, none of this would be happening. It'd be over. Right now, in a statement late in the day, Russian Ministry of Defense, the MOD, confirmed it attacked these rail locations, took out train tracks, transport lines, because they were being used as a weapon of war, folks. Once they started using these for weapons, the Russians are like, okay, if you're going to do that, then we're going to take out the train tracks. In other words, folks, the Ukrainian people are going to suffer because the United Nations, NATO, the United States, want to continue to antagonize and make this war drag on and on. Now, Germany wanted to be a bunch of smarty pants and expel Russian diplomats. So Russia turned around and expelled 40 of their diplomats. And so Germans all looked at each other today and said, it's time to start buying sweaters. And record amounts of sweaters were purchased for next winter because they're not going to have Russian energy. They won't have gas, oil, coal, anything else. And they're also buying pedal bikes because they won't have fuel for their cars. And if they could get it, it's probably going to be so expensive they can't afford it. Now, it's incredible, folks. The Kremlin says Blinken, Secretary of State Blinken, and of course, Secretary of Defense, a-hole Lloyd showed up. Austin Lloyd. But Kremlin, the Russians said, look, you're pouring fuel on the flames. Actually, they said was, here's the quote. What the Americans are doing is pouring oil on the flames. That was Anatoly Antonov. It's not Americans doing this. I want to help remind Putin and Russia. This is the United States government in Washington, D.C. The American people are not pouring oil, fuel, gas, or anything on anyone. It's the government. Please keep that in mind if it comes to bombing anybody. Now, he also said, I only see an attempt to raise the stakes, to aggravate the situation, to see more losses. Folks, the United States of America, or rather the United States government, in my opinion, doesn't want Ukraine to win the way we normally think of it. They just want Russia damaged, hurt, reduced in power. Secretary of Defense Lloyd A-hole Austin said this, we believe that they can win if they have the right equipment, meaning the Ukrainians, the right support, and we're going to do everything we can to ensure that gets to them. And folks, China is just watching and taking notes. Taiwan is watching and taking notes. Just a little aside in there. Just a little aside. Unbelievable, folks. What is going on? They want to drag this out. They want everyone to think that the Russians and Putin are war criminals, that they're committing atrocities, that this is genocide. Folks, this is war. Right? And over there, in that place called Eastern Europe, Russia, it's a different kind of war than the I'm going to call you bad names and I'm going to complain on social media kind of warfare we have in America here. When it comes to, when it comes to blows, do you think sticks and stones are going to break my bones? Well, they might, but names will never hurt me. If it gets violent here in America, there's going to be a lot of people wondering what happened. I thought we were all just yelling at each other. It's going to get ugly, folks. Ugly. Now, as of late, we've been hearing from notable political figures like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the current White House administration that misinformation is too dangerous and therefore free speech has to be limited. Free speech has its limits, and in fact, free speech threatens democracy. And so I was dealing with some emails today with John Minskis. I can never say his name properly. Miskinnis. Anyways, he was giving me some information. I sent some back. I said, free speech is really easy to understand. And the language used to construct both the Constitution and the debates surrounding it are very well written out and explained. If you can't read the proper English right there in the First Amendment, you can always go to the Federalist Papers. Do we need free speech or controlled speech for our country? We've never had a democracy, folks. They keep asking for democracy, and I think I talked about that last night and said a democracy is 5 wolves and 4 sheep voting on what's for dinner. And that's when you get the tyranny of the majority. And the constitutional republic was set up to limit government, its power, and its authority, regardless of who has the majority. And that rights are inalienable. That is, we can argue about what functions the government's going to fulfill on our behalf, but you can never, ever, ever take the people's rights. And anything contrary, conflicting with the Constitution itself, is null and void on its face. It cannot become law and then be argued. It becomes instantly null, meaning our rights cannot be superseded by legislation, nor can our rights be superseded by international treaty. It is a misconstruction. It is a misunderstanding. It is sophistry and a lie to say that international treaty supersedes the Constitution when it has to be examined under a constitutional lens first. It's unbelievable, folks. Now, getting back to free speech. Why is free speech a threat, folks? Well, it's not. So why is controlled speech desired by the powerful, like Hillary and Biden and Nancy Pelosi? Why is controlled speech desired by social media? Twitter. Why is it desired by Google? Google wants to also, folks. Google's out there trying to stop alternative discussion of and criticism of what is going on in Ukraine. Well, James Madison, if you remember that guy, one of the founding father types, he was a major player in the debates revolving around the Federalist Papers. They were created at the time of our Constitution. They debated all political topics well so that the people would have a record of the discussion and be able to have an understanding of why these things were important back then and how they actually apply now. Madison believed that those who sought, this is, folks, a quote from the National Review website, Madison believed that those who sought to restrict speech revealed themselves to be the opponents of republicanism. They wished to prevent public opinion from cohering, thus making it easier to counterfeit. Now, Madison believed that those who sought to restrict speech revealed themselves to be opponents of republicanism. That is, they are opponents and enemies of a constitutional republic. Funny how socialist Democrats want to restrict free speech, folks. They are opponents of our republic. They are adherents to the concept of democracy because it serves them. Now, let me reread this part. They wish to prevent public opinion from cohering. I know it's a little bit of a different language, but it's still easy to understand. He says, thus making it easier to counterfeit. They could make a counterfeit, right? Fake news, a counterfeit public opinion and discussion if they control the argument through censorship, right? In plain speak, if the elites can restrict what is said, then it becomes simple to create what the public believes, having only one thought or opinion to utter and debate. They want everyone arguing the same side. Well, do we give a little bit of stuff to Ukraine or a lot of stuff? Do we give a little bit of money or a lot of money? They don't allow no money, no support. We shouldn't be there as part of the discussion. Right? Should the Russians be really pissed or partially pissed? Right? They don't want us discussing that. They just want us to stay in the argument of, well, is it genocide or is it just war atrocities? Right? Censored speech, folks, is individual death, having their thoughts counterfeited, right, or faked for them. That's what they want. They want to give us counterfeit, fake thoughts. Unbelievable. Thank you, James Madison. From beyond the grave, he is still influencing people and their understanding. Isn't it incredible that modern Democrats, modern socialists, modern globalists lose in debate to the wisdom of men who lived hundreds of years ago? Unbelievable. Now, you want to hear unfreaking believable? This idea that you are disqualified for having free speech, disqualified for holding office. Now, we heard about Big Marge and the fact that the judge, even though he laughed at and did an actual facepalm over the idea that uttering the numbers 1776 makes one a supporter of insurrection and therefore should be disqualified from running for office, the judge allowed that to go forward. He wants that trial to take place. I actually want it to take place as well. But in Arizona, folks, the judge there has dismissed the lawsuit outright, aimed at disqualifying Representatives Gosar and Biggs. As we've been discussing, this is our domestic battle, folks. It's political, it's philosophical, it's psychological, it's propaganda and lies. As discussed, disqualifying candidates based on the mere accusation of participation in an insurrection should require proof that the insurrection occurred and that the accused actually participated in it to a significant degree, in a significant way. Saying the number 1776 or sympathizing even with protesters is not a crime nor a disqualifier. Now, this fight has got to go higher. The war on freedom of speech, folks, needs a winner. And we're going to have this discussion. It's going to become part of it. This idea that you can't say white lives matter is ridiculous, right? They're attempting to control everything. They attempted to control that one with violence, because we said, well, wait a minute, don't all lives matter? So you can't say white, you can't say all, it's racist. You can't say anything. You can't criticize the other side. We were told at one point, you're not allowed to make fun of or bully others. And then we were told we had to be tolerant and allow them to speak. And then we were told we're not allowed to speak. And we have to be treated with intolerance because we're bigots and hateful. We're xenophobes. It's all nonsense, folks. The powers that be, they would have us believe them at every turn. Once again, they need to be criticized for flip-flopping, if you will. They need to be criticized for changing their mind on a whim. And, anytime someone passes whim, they seem to drop the story and change their mind. That's not how government should work. That's not how liberty should work. Okay. There's a very unpopular person out there. Can you guess who?
I also want to ask you about the president's mandate. There's so much opposition now.
I understand, and we all understand, how people do not like to be told what to do.
People don't like to be told what to do. Well, guess what? A University of Wisconsin track star, another super athlete, folks, college age, super athlete, track star, She's dead, age 21, keeled over. Want to take a guess? I'd just take a wild guess, right? Folks, get your Jim Jones juice. You know you need it. Late last night, I found out someone very close that I know of took it and is suffering a year later from troubles. Very upsetting, folks. I'm hoping that the proper treatment restores this person's health. It is no joke. Folks have taken this and they're not telling the truth. I've been asking about this one person for probably the last year. Have you guys taken it? Have you guys taken it? Have you guys taken it? The answer was no, 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 and no. And then I find out they're so sick, we need some help. People are hiding their health issues that have evolved, that have erupted as a consequence of taking the Jim Jones juice. I'm sure this super athlete who's dead now at age 21, I'm sure they took it a long time ago. But why so many enlarged hearts? Why so many cardio problems? Why so many aneurysms, brain bleed outs? Why? It's incredible, folks. It's very, very scary what's happening. This is not going away, and they're continuing to push it. Continuing. It is unbelievable what is going on. Now, there's a lot going on. And I haven't heard anyone else really talk about this. And in truth, folks, I have enough trouble keeping up with everything on the satirical news side that I don't get to listen to every other YouTube, Rumble, BitChute video maker. But did you know that the Los Angeles freeway system was shut down by truckers who are protesting fuel prices that are a consequence of Joe Biden's energy policy? Let's go, Brandon, right? What are they supposed to do? Buy electric semis? You know, it's a big dope moment, but yeah, they're shutting down. People are pissed. This is really hurting people. And the mainstream media doesn't want to cover it. And there is so much going on. Right? How many topics could you and I talk about daily before we run out of topics? And then developments from within each of those topics. Education, the military, business, the government, international affairs, commodities, energy, infrastructure. You know, we can go on and on with different topics. And they're all falling apart. It is incredible. Absolutely incredible. But we're not, we're supposed to focus on Biden, not the fuel prices, not the consequences of his action. In fact, Raggedy Red, the communist Jen Psaki, says there are limitations imposed upon Biden that have not allowed people to see, quote, what his magic is. Did you know that? Did you know someone is limiting Joe Biden? It's not the media. They're not criticizing him. It's not the people. He's the most popular president ever, right? Did you know that he's got magic powers? When you shop for food, folks, do you feel the Biden magic? When you fill your fuel tank, do you feel the Biden miracle at work? When Biden speaks, jabbers, whispers, and bumbles around, why is it that you can't understand how brilliant he is? And when Biden craps his pants publicly, how can you deny his godlike qualities and brilliance? This is really what we're supposed to be believing, is Jen Psaki telling us Biden is being held down. He's having limitations put on him. So people just can't see how his magic works. By the way, Jen Psaki also thinks that young children, down to the age 4, should be taught about the virtues of gender dysphoria and how gender is a construct and that you're allowed to question your own gender. And folks, we have never had higher child and teen suicide rates than now. I wonder why. Do you? I personally, I don't wonder why, folks. There's a great deal of confusion out here. There's a great deal of confusion, and it goes from the kids, as just mentioned, all the way to the top. The head of the FBI, who I like to think of as a giant dirtbag, Christopher Wray, he has called January 6th a terrorist attack. He said thousands of people stormed the Capitol. Now, he was on 60 Minutes over the weekend. 60 Minutes used to be an investigative journalist, investigative media show 40 years ago, right? Now they are a lapdog weenie nibbler organization. They had Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, and they could have gotten some answers. I'm sure there are Democrats out there that would like the real answers, the real truth. But instead, at no point during the interview did 60 Minutes ask about the plot to set up the Michigan governor kidnapping hoax frame job done by the FBI. That could have been a gotcha moment. How about another one? How about you got Christopher Wray on your show? Why not ask him about Hunter Biden's laptop? And ask some really pointed questions about smoking crack, smoking weed, prostitution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At no point did the 60 Minutes interviewer challenge Christopher Wray for his ridiculous statements on the January 6th about the people storming the Capitol and thousands of insurrectionists. They looked like they were on tour once they were inside the Capitol, guffawing and looking around, walking on the pathways that they were directed by the police. Folks, the 60 Minutes news crew did not mention the new lawsuit against the FBI for the gymnasts, these gymnasts who were sexually abused by their coach, a fact that was known to the FBI as it was happening, and they did nothing to stop it. There was a lot of things they could have asked Christopher Wray. Instead, they made it a platform not for free speech, not for the truth. See, media, the fourth estate, right? That was supposed to be our ability to get information out to everybody. Instead, it's used to hide information. There are so many facts, so many questions that should have been asked, and none of it was. Instead, it was a platform for the agenda, not for liberty. Yeah, this is our SHTF, folks. We did not ask for it, but it's here. It is literally here. Right? The same way the FBI is warning cyber attacks could impact the world food supply. Predictive programming? What have we seen with food plants, food storage being burned? You know, fire after fire after fire, even airplane crashes into them, on top of, you know, union strikes and other things. Why didn't 60 Minutes ask about that? Where did you get your information? Well, if you knew about stuff like that, if you knew this was going to be happening, if it's arson or terrorism, why haven't you stopped it? I think those are fair questions. It would be nice, folks, if we could have some massive media exposure. Instead, we are exposed to what? Censorship. And I really think there's a lot of people in YouTube that are now thinking about it. They're now thinking about what is going on with Twitter. They're thinking about free speech. I wonder if the people at the other social media networks, including YouTube, are wondering what's going to happen with a Democrat eviction and a Republican installment in power in Congress. Can they revoke or amend immunity, and make them responsible for what happens on their channels? Not their channels, but rather their networks. Can they have their power and authority and immunity restricted and taken away? Is that what they're thinking about? I sure hope so, folks. Anyways, they're going to continue to use the media for their own agenda. And I'm going to finish up my section with this. You know, over the weekend, MSNBC, their media hack, Joy Reid, accused Florida Governor Desantis of child abuse. Did Governor Desantis make children wear masks all day long in school? Did Governor DeSantis tape masks to children's faces? Did Governor DeSantis make kids sit out in the freezing weather? Well, there is no freezing weather in Florida. Did Governor DeSantis refuse to allow children to eat, use the restroom, or participate in other social activities and other educational activities? Did Governor DeSantis tell children that they're bad and wrong and make them stand in front of the class and denigrate themselves and put themselves down? No, those things were all done by teachers, folks. It was done by teachers. It was done by Democrat mayors and Democrat governors and the president of the United States, Joe Biden. What was he being accused of then? What child abuse was he being accused of, folks? Joy Reid said this misuse of black boys is tantamount to child abuse. I would really like to hear the backstory on these kids who these kids were and how they wound up at a DeSantis event. Given how anti-black DeSantis is, using black children this way is extra sick. Basically, folks, there were some young black boys, and they were holding some signs that were anti-critical race theory. And they appeared, and they were told, and they were informed of what's going on, and they asked. They wanted to be up there. Maybe it's because they don't like critical race theory. Maybe they see it degrades themselves as well as everyone else. Maybe they see that people should be equal. We're all equal. Shouldn't we all be equal? Equal rights, equal standing, etc. Do we really need to put down one group of children to make other children feel good? Right? There's a lot of things really, really wrong. And I actually think un-American and illegal with this critical race theory crap. And Governor DeSantis' office, folks, has come out against it, as well as the legislature in Florida. So it is the people speaking through their elected representatives in the Republic of Florida. And Governor DeSantis' office maintained that the boys in question were informed on the issues and freely chose to stand on the stage. Well, Joy Reid and commie mainstream media and Democrat scum everywhere want us to believe that persons of color are not capable of understanding topics and making their own decisions, folks. The leftist authoritarians want one story, one agenda, and all minorities must follow and obey that, right? Once again, folks, it's censorship to create mind-controlled slaves. DeSantis had this to say, folks. We're here today because we believe in education, not indoctrination. We believe an important component of freedom in the state of Florida is the freedom from having oppressive ideologies opposed upon you without your consent, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be in the workplace. DeSantis was signing HB 7, folks, known as the Individual Freedom Bill. Now, trolling the liberals into a triggered hell, declaring freedom, trashing anti-American garbage agendas, anti-American garbage agenda, go Florida, go DeSantis. Folks, we need our free speech. I don't want democracy. I want our Republican form of government, which is what the founding fathers created. It protects us from the tyranny of the majority. Right? We didn't ask for SHTF, folks. We didn't ask for it, but they gave it to us, like it or not. So that's my monologue. It is now your turn. I went a little bit long, not bad for a Monday. Last night, we went way long, over 4 hours and 45 minutes. I blame Ooman. And then I blame everyone else for having a good time. And that's the longest ever, folks. Almost 5 hours straight. No breaks, no pee break. The only thing I did was drink the whole time so I wouldn't dehydrate. There was some really good iced tea. All right, let's do this. Let's get to the Q&A, shall we?
Are you ready?
Maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys did ask for SHTF, and I'm just speaking for myself. Did anyone here? Anyone? Did anyone ask for this? I doubt it. Anyways, let's get to your questions. We've got a lot to talk about. It is Monday. I had a lot to talk about last night. You guys kept me busy. Literally, I did less than a handful of my own topics, and we stuck to what you guys wanted to say, what you guys wanted to bring up. It is wild what is happening. We got Latin American preparedness. He said numerous food production plants and fertilizer plants being destroyed in the past 6 months. Distribution centers have recently been destroyed. How can all the destruction happen and the consequences of this? Years ago, we had fertilizer plants, fertilizer manufacturer storage areas blowing up. I know we had one in Texas because at that time I was traveling and installing a beer system in Oklahoma. And I remember thinking, oh, shit. And in fact, that was during, I think, the Boston bombing. I think it all happened at the same time. I believe there was another fertilizer plant, though, that got toasted, and it was somewhere, I think, in North or South Carolina. I think they figured out, yeah, we can make these big, giant ANFO incidents if they want. ANFO, ammonium nitrate fertilizer, right? It's both fertilizer and can turn into an explosive material. But, you know, food production plants, fire after fire after fire after fire. Last night, I read them off, just those in 2022. And there were many, many that burned in 2021. And then fertilizer plants being destroyed, blown up. The fertilizer trade from Russia and Ukraine over into the rest of the world has been halted. And even the railroad, but Union Pacific said, that's it. We're going to limit our transportation of fertilizer. At a time when they're predicting massive food shortages in China, and the fact that in Europe, countries are now saying, that's it, we're not exporting any of our food that we make. Everyone's tightening their belts. Everyone is making sure they're harnessed correctly, that their guns are loaded, that their pantries are stocked. Everyone knows what's coming. It's the thing that no political leader wants to say out loud, that shit has hit the fan, that they've screwed everything up, and in fact, they're even making it worse. I'm sure some of them think they're fixing it, and then the consequences. And Latin America Preparedness said, yeah, what are the consequences of this? Well, in my opinion, any third world country, any small country is going to be harmed first. They're already harmed. Food shortages and massive inflation. The United States dollar is contributing to this. Now, compared to the other currencies of the world, yeah, they can hold up the US dollar and make it look as good as possible, make it the prettiest pig in the room. But it's still losing its purchasing power. And we know this because of inflation. We see it, we feel it, we know it. Right? I feel that Biden magic at the gas pump. I feel that Biden magic in the store. Again, over the weekend, I went to a very large store. So it wasn't some small little mom and pop that got an expensive shipment of meat. It's a large, major national chain. And I'm looking at steaks that used to cost $10, now cost 25. I was looking at steaks that used to cost $5, now cost 10. It's like, why? I couldn't find chicken breasts in the entire store. We found wings, found chicken tenders that were pre-made, but no chicken breasts. Frozen. Why not? You got everything else frozen here. There's some weird stuff going on. There's consequences, folks. There's going to be high prices and shortages coming to third world countries first, then emerging markets, but we're going to feel it in the United States. In England, they're starting to ration cooking oil. And this has happened a couple times in the last few years with England rationing things. It shouldn't have to be that way, folks. It shouldn't. But it is. So are you prepared? Right down at the very bottom, we got go to thepreparedmind.club. You can get cerveza bug medicine, you can get food. You can get everything you need to get prepared there. Shop us, shop other prices. We've got access to everything available to get you and your family and maybe even your wealth to the other side. There's a lot of people out here who have money and they see what's coming. In fact, the wealthy are those who typically know what's coming before us little people are. And the wealthy people, they want to protect their money also. And so they're buying the gold and silver stuff. Yep, at distribution centers, food storage centers, warehouses. We used to talk in SHTF and say, yeah, when things get really bad, will these wholesalers and warehouses, are they going to be guarded by the military? The National Guard, will they come out and make sure that food isn't plundered, that there won't be looting, where it looks like maybe they're just going to all catch fire when it's most convenient for those who want more power and control over us? You know, what is the best way to control us? Fear. What fear is it that everyone feels every 6 hours? It's called hunger. And hunger pains, folks, are incredibly fearsome and motivating. Let's move on. Thank you again, Latin America Preparedness, for your awesome questions and support here. We move on to Bonnie Blue 2A, and she's got a statement. Why control speech? Yahweh spoke the world into existence. The frequency, meaning the frequency of our speech. The frequency of our speech has the power to bring about good or evil. Speaking blessings has power over evil speak. So, fact, truth, that would be good speech, right? Good, God, right? God, good, gut. Those mean the same things. To do good, to speak good, causes good to happen. If all we are allowed to speak is untruths, fake news, and lies, only evil can come from that, only bad things. So what is the United States government, the Washington, D.C. guys? What are they speaking? They're speaking lies. They might call it half-truths. They could say, well, this is just propaganda, but it's not truth. So it is the opposite. They're proclaiming Ukraine to be a good place and Zelensky to be the good guy. It's not the truth. It's not factual. It's not correct. So it's creating negative consequences, evil. Now, the fact that you and I want to talk about other, shall we say, reality, you know, we claim that reality is something quite different, that Ukraine has purposely brought this on, trying to get their way with NATO or trying to create a conflict. And so, yeah, people suffer. Evil occurs. What a marvelous idea, huh? You speak evil, you get evil. You speak the truth, right? And good things happen. That's why they want to silence you. That's why they want to silence me. They want us to be deaf to the voices of truth. They want us to only be able to hear the lies. And lies within the media and lies within the government beget more lies and allow evil to work its, shall we say, nasty consequences. Thank you, Bonnie Blue 2A, for bringing that up. It's just, it becomes self-explanatory once discussed. Now, here's a question from Bonnie Blue. She said, John, did you see the link I posted to Judicial Watch revealing that the Biden-Garland Department of Justice is issuing grants and sentencing guidelines with equity requirements for the underserved? I did not see that. I would have hoped you would have emailed that to me. I didn't get that email. My gosh, that's a really important thing. I did catch a little bit of this at some point. This idea of issuing grants, that is, and sentencing guidelines. It's the government pushing equity. Now, again, folks, equity sounds kind of like equality. If we think of equity in our home, it's like, well, I only owe $100,000, but it's worth $300,000, so I have $200,000 in equity. Right? That's the fair cash value of that the owner has. But equity and law is something entirely different. Equity is not law. Equity is equity, and equity is not equality. Equity is fairness. Life is not fair. I would love it if life were fair, and if that were the case, we would have a whole different world, but we don't have fairness, folks. We don't. But they're trying to make it fair, and the way government likes to make things fair is to take your money and give it to someone else. They're going to decide what is fair. See, fair is in the eyes of the beholder. To a Democrat judge, to a Democrat bureaucrat, fairness is different than it would be to someone of a more conservative or traditional nature. So people should be given money based on their racial appearance. I thought we weren't supposed to racially profile people and give them things or take things away from them based on their color, because we just want equality. They don't want equality anymore, folks. They've moved past that to equity, to certain people should be given certain things. It's going to be a bigger issue as we go. Underserved is another word, right? It's a way of saying I didn't get enough or I deserve more, because that would be fair. We've got big troubles coming. Now, Joe Biden is the chief executive officer, if you will. He is the president of the United States, the commander in chief, if you will. And he has authority over matters federal. Once again, federal should only cover Washington, D.C., forts, arsenals, dockyards, army bases, etc. But they're trying to make federal authority and jurisdiction be everywhere. And they'll certainly push this in federal courts, folks, but it's un-American. It's certainly socialist in nature. And it's causing people to mentally languish in an evil place because it's not based on truth. It's not based on fact. There's an agenda at play. Thank you again, Bonnie Blue, for all that you do for the channel. Thank you to everybody. We got Serge checking in. And he says, one truth, one false. You know, one truth, one lie. We're going to play Stump the John. Okay. And here it is. CNN Plus was the most successful news industry of all time. If CNN Plus could still recover if Trump is back on Twitter. CNN Plus was the most successful news industry. CNN Plus was that app they spent like $157 million on, and it flopped in a month. Nobody wanted to watch it. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to pay for it. There it is, right? CNN Plus could still recover if Trump was back on Twitter. I don't think so. You see, this is it's very fascinating to me. Like just the other day, and I didn't report on this, but we'll talk about it now. The president and vice president are not very charitable people. In fact, if you go back in history and look at the charitable contributions made by Democrats, they are typically the least giving to charities, period. They're tight with their money, but they'll spend yours. See, you don't know how to spend your money the right way. They'll do it for you. But when it comes to them and theirs, they don't like to be taxed, and they don't like to be generous. They'll be generous with your money. So here we are, CNN Plus. No conservative in America is going to pay money for that. You can get all the facts and all the left-wing radical bullshit, lies, propaganda, and smear on regular CNN and other mainstream media. You don't need to pay money for it, for Pete's sake. So even if Trump came back on Twitter, even if he said, I want to be back on Twitter now that Elon Musk is controlling it, people wouldn't say, oh my God, I've got to now get on CNN Plus. And as a Democrat, I am now willing to spend money so somebody can make me feel good about what's happening. Don't worry. If Twitter goes free speech, meaning you and I, anybody can speak on there, there'll be plenty of complaining, whining, and sniveling on every other mainstream socialist, globalist media source. they'll be just fine without Twitter, and they don't need CNN Plus. That's how I see it, though, folks. That's how I see it. Unfreaking believable. Anyways, thank you, Serge, for playing that. I love Stump the John. And now we've got David checking in, and I'm getting machine gunned here pretty good today with you guys. David says, I heard an interesting theory. What if they are about to release another bioweapon that will kill off all of the unjuicinated, the freedom-minded, nonconformist people? They've already demonized us. Oh, so your suggestion, and I've heard this theory also, and I've considered it, because what if everyone that got the Jim Jones juice is now immune from the real bioweapon that's out there? And so then they fly airplanes over and they spray us all, kind of like Pussy Galore's Flying Circus did in Goldfinger. And they spray the whole country with the new bioweapon. And everybody that got the Jim Jones juice lives, and the rest of us keel over doing the kicking chicken, right? I mean, it's possible. You can't put anything past the ultimate evil. But, well, what about all the doctors and nurses and professional athletes and politicians that lied about taking the real Jim Jones juice, that really never did, but just said they did and, got their own cards? Oh, yeah, folks, there's a lot going on out there right now. They would keel over too, wouldn't they? Because I do not believe, folks, that most politicians got it at the federal level, especially, but even in the state and then local. I'm sure they know better. I'm sure they're looking around going, F that. But I want everyone else to get it, because they're thinking, if everyone else gets it, then I'll be protected because it'll stop. But they don't want to put that shit in their body. And that's why there's all those videos that show fakery. So yeah, they have, though, already demonized us. My worry is that they're going to hit us with another bio attack, and everybody who is fully juicinated is going to succumb to it to greater degrees, because people who have been juicinated now have weaker immune systems. And there is actual, as far as I've been told, and I think this is also satire, but I was told that people that have been juicinated now have weaker immune systems. So those who get sprayed with something new are going to be affected to a much greater degree, a scary degree, possibly. And again, we have to look at this as possibilities, not as concrete facts. But we do have some concrete facts. We do have some concrete statistics. And I'll tell you what, this guy right here is not getting anything jammed at him. And there are many people that have decided that after a year and a half of this, the people lining up and being stupid and getting sick and keeling over and dying and having compromised immune systems and putting videos out. Doctor that invented this technology saying, don't do it, not smart. I'm pretty sure we figured out that I would rather fight to the death, right, in a cage full of pit bulls than put that shit inside of me. All righty. Great topic indeed. What comes next, I think, is part of the driving thought behind that last question is, well, what's going to come next? Are they going to come after us? Are they going to go after their own? Are they going to make things worse? Are they going to pretend like everything's fine and then let the medical system just deal with all the problems that they generated? Wow. What a world. These people, folks, are incredibly dangerous, and they don't care about you. They don't. Fully juicinated and boosted Texas gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke. Beto, we have the nuclear weapons. Beto, we're coming after your AR-15s and your AKs. Beto, we're going to take your guns, has announced that he has cerveza bug. Unbelievable. I just can't believe it. I don't know how that happened. How is that even possible? Folks, they're shooting themselves in the feet. Shooting themselves in the feet. This just in, Former Ukraine ambassador slips up, admits Putin wouldn't have invaded if Trump were president. That's interesting. What a statement, folks. See, little pieces of truth will continue to come out, right? This former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. Why, folks? Take a guess, right? Why would Putin not have invaded if Trump was president? Right? Well, number one, I don't think that that NATO and the United States of America would be pushing to get NATO into Ukraine, because the Donbass peace agreement, peace accord, said that they shouldn't do that. Right? Now, Yovanovitch says Trump was very dismissive of NATO, very critical of NATO, she said, critical of our allies. Shouldn't we be critical? I mean, we should be both supportive and critical of everything. Unbelievable, folks. There's going to be more coming out on this as the days and weeks pass ahead. It is really unbelievable, folks. But this idea that Trump wouldn't invade Putin wouldn't invade if Trump was president. I think the lady's probably trying to say that Trump is a Putin asset, not that things would be different because of American policy and NATO policy. But this is the world we live in, folks, where it is all about propaganda. It's all about lies. It's all about controlling the narrative. It's all about controlling your belief system. Right? We've got a bunch of hypotheticals here. Right? Well, what if NATO hadn't pressed to get into Ukraine? Well, of course, that was Putin's criticism. That was his concern. That was his worry. That was the existential threat to his country. He already knew that in Ukraine, that Volodymyr Zelensky was not a legitimate leader, that he was planted in there by the CIA after the coup d'etat of 2014. Putin already knew that the Azov battalion flew Nazi flags and were basically Ukrainian Nazis. He already knew that. It wasn't a surprise to him. It was the fact that they wanted to move NATO in. Putin already knew that Ukraine oligarchs and European oligarchs were taking advantage of and plundering Ukraine for their benefit. What Putin didn't want was US and NATO missile systems on his border. That's what he didn't want. And also, I think that with Trump in the presidency, Putin would probably be, just in general, more concerned about an American response. Democrats have demonstrated very poor strategery. There's a little bit of a President Bush thing there. Yeah, their strategy. They don't seem to understand strategy very well. Putin has outplayed, outmaneuvered Democrats going all the way back, but especially under the Barack Obama administration. It has hit the fan, folks. We didn't ask for this. I didn't. I know you didn't. None of us asked for it, but it's here. It's absolutely here. They're pushing everything they can on top of us. War, famine, and pestilence. Are you prepared? Do you have a stocked pantry? Do you have water filtration? Do you have all the sweaters you need for next winter? Proper clothing, right? And if you've ever been out and done outdoor type work, you know how quickly clothing gets destroyed, how quickly it can be torn up if you're having to do things physical. That is why, folks, military clothing is so rugged and tough. And it actually is, believe it or not, surprisingly comfortable. Right? You're not going to get a lot of, shall we say, combat maneuvering done if you're wearing skinny jeans. You know, you're not going to look really good wearing Daisy Dukes after a day of neighborhood patrol. Right? There's a reason for the proper clothing. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. And you truly do need to get means of self-defense. Now, Oliver Uman and I had a little talk last night about losing your ability to properly defend yourself with a gun. If you're not out there shooting all the time, you need to spend enough time, put enough rounds down range, and have enough instruction, professional instruction, to become very proficient with your tool. And then you always can retain that. Now, the more the merrier, practice makes perfect. But you need to at least get that bare minimum to get yourself into a position where you can, in any situation, light or dark, cold or hot, either calm or fearful, be able to function, right? And I would even recommend getting some tactical experience in at a tactical shooting range. Once you get the basics down, once you have the basics down, you can do some more advanced stuff, and it can be fun. And you don't have to do it every day, and you don't have to break the bank doing it. It can be done very inexpensively. But everything, folks, does take some time, does take some effort, and does take some wealth. And if you can't invest in yourself, what are you doing, right? What's the point of it? It's hard times, folks. We didn't ask for any of this, but we get to deal with it. Chance favors the prepared mind. Thank you, folks. Thank you for coming here, sharing your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and your fellowship with the rest of us. I'll see you all first thing in the morning, and I guarantee there's going to be a bunch more crap that we have to deal with that is just now happening. Now. And we're going to hear about it and talk about it later. Until then, hasta la vista, semper fi, and Godspeed.